and it was handled in the same way that the president and the vice president situation is handled. I mean, there's no separate money that the lieutenant governor can receive.
So it was a contribution to the tickets,
Right.
So, okay. Let's go back to, I guess, one of your other initiatives, which was to increase the profile of the commission. And tell me what you're doing. I said I noticed like a YouTube icon right on your site, but I guess you're doing some new media things as well as some traditional, outreach methods as well.
Yeah, right. You mentioned the YouTube. That's something new where we've had Chairwoman Jerry Fitzgerald English, talking about the commission and what we do. That's one of the things that we've done. Also, we introduced a local contributor database. And that we introduced that in November. Historically, people could access enter a name of a contributor, and we could find out if that contributor gave to legislative candidates or gave to gubernatorial candidates or county party candidates or state parties. But we didn't have anything. We didn't have that availability for local candidates. So we've introduced that now, so that that information is available. Anybody can go in and put in the name of a business or put in the name of a individual contributor, and it'll print out, it'll come up with a whole list of contributors, both to statewide candidates as well as to local candidates now, and school board candidates, and May municipal candidates. So we feel that that's been a real accomplishment in terms of providing the kind of information that we think the public needs. Also, another thing that we started doing right from the very beginning, back in July, is we've introduced a newsletter. It's an online newsletter that, when we first started, we had a mailing list of maybe 250 people, and it's now well over 1,000 people that subscribe to the newsletter. And our newsletter goes out every month, and it really provides some weighty information in terms of campaign financing and lobbying. It's not just pat kind of things about the commission, but we talked about Citizens United. We talk about what's going on with pay to play. We talk about lobbying and trends in lobbying, and we even talk about trends in different states and throughout the country and at the federal level. So it's a really good tool for getting out information. Also, one thing we're doing differently and much more aggressively is, what we used to do is just kind of say, well, put out a notice to the press that X reports are available on such and such a date. And what we're doing now is we're in addition to that, we're releasing analytical press releases that really go into depth in terms of kind of demonstrating the trends that are going on. We're doing it with county party organizations, with municipal committees, with the legislative candidates, the Big Six, which include legislative leadership committees and the state party committees, with lobbyist release, school board releases. Every time that information becomes available, we're including with that in-depth releases that I think is very helpful to the public in terms of seeing what's going on.
In fact, there were two that I noticed that I wanted to maybe get your thoughts on. I guess one was the lobbyist report, which seemed to indicate that I think the money spent on lobbyists was like flat, like it hadn't been increasing, or influence of lobbyists were decreasing, if I have it right. And I think the other one was on the county committees, where money had been gotten, I guess money being spent was down a little bit as well. I was wondering if you think that's primarily a function of the economy, or if there's some mechanisms that are put in place that are determining that result.
Well, with regard to the drop-off in county organization money that's coming into those organizations, we also saw a similar, almost 30% drop-off in contributions to legislative candidates, contributions to the state party committees and legislative leadership committees. All down the line, we saw a tremendous drop-off. And I've attributed that not only to economic conditions, but primarily to the pay-to-play law, which took effect in 2006. because we started seeing those contributions drop off in the election of actually 2005, where we saw a decrease in the rate of increase in contributions. And we saw the same thing in 2007 legislative elections. And this time around, it was like 30% drop off. And we never saw that before, even in tough economic times. Even in the early 1990s, contributions always increased, receipts always increased. So I've attributed that side of it to the pay-to-play law primarily as having that kind of an impact. With regard to the lobbyists, the economy could be having an impact. We've seen that in other states as well, that lobbying has been down. But, it's hovered around 55 million for the last 4 years or so. And this current year that it reports 2009 was about 56 million, a little increase, 1% over last year. So we're seeing that. But what we're noticing is what I've termed the changing nature of lobbying. Moving away from, I don't want to say mom and pop, but the traditional kind of insider access, personal goodwill type of lobbying, to a more sophisticated, more multi-dimensional lobbying, kind of following the trend that's started in the 1980s with late 1980s at the federal level. We're now, we're seeing more grassroots lobbying. We're seeing lobbyists taking on advertisers, political consultants. And there's almost a blurring in some ways between campaigns and issue ads that lobbying organizations are undertaking. Research has become, it's always been important, but it's really become important. Pollsters and that kind of thing, which media consultants. It's really new. It's kind of a trend that's going on even here in New Jersey.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of it's driven by the internet too, and the new ways to get information.
Exactly, new media, right?
Yeah. So we're I think nearing the end of our time, but one thing we haven't talked about, I wonder, the one word in your title of the commission is enforcement. We've been talking about a lot of the information that's available, but I mean, what do you do when there is a problem, somebody brings something to your attention? And I know, as a reporter, having covered races, it seems like somewhere in when there's a tight race or particularly negative race, somebody will charge somebody else with violating election law, and I'm sure you get a lot of things like that. And,
particularly during campaign time, the complaints fine. Of course, as I haven't mentioned it yet, we do. Our primary mission, obviously, is disclosure, but we do have enforcement powers in which we can mete out fines for violations of the act. And, we religiously try to stay out of campaigns with regard to this. And, one of the things that, we'll get calls from the press saying, oh, so-and-so said that they submitted a complaint to you on their opponent. And we just don't confirm or deny because everybody has due process. And, once investigations are done and complaints are issued, obviously it all becomes public. But during
which is usually after the election is done, isn't it?
Whenever they come up. I mean, I know candidates out there want us to take care of these things right before an election, but that never happens because we have to, we go through the whole process of investigations, and people have a right to a hearing if they desire and so forth.
So, okay, just before we go, I mean, what do you have lined up? And you've talked about a lot of exciting things you're doing at the commission. Anything new on the horizon? I know you do have elections to deal with. Actually, as we speak, municipal elections are coming up in less than a week, but we have a whole bunch of them in November as well. So.
We have all that coming up, and this year, of course, we don't have statewide elections, but every year we have a flood of local elections and municipal county elections, and we just got done with the school board election. So, there's a lot on our plate that we, are always busy, and we're trying to do more, as I said, with analytical reports and